What's up? You're watching Dive Vibe, and today we're going to be checking out a rescue diver course that did not go according to plan. So stay tuned. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dive Vibe. My name is Zach. I'm a technical rebreather instructor and a former Army medic / CLS instructor. So I've taught a lot of people. And today I'm going to be using that expertise to react to this rescue diver course. And it did not go exactly as planned, I'm sure, for the student or the instructor. It's a short video, but I think we can learn a lot from it. So we're going to watch the video, pause a little bit, talk about what's going on, and then at the end, we're going to talk about what went well, what went bad. I think I'm going to have a lot to say about this one. So make sure you stay tuned till the end so you don't miss anything, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this video. So we might as well get to it and start unpacking this whole mess. And before we get started, I'd just like to take a second to thank Dive Vibe's patrons. This stuff would not be possible without them. Basically, they're supporting the channel and allowing us to do cooler and cooler things with monetary support. So if you would like to see your name on this list, go down to the description, click on Patreon, and sign up. You'll have access to exclusive content, and I make myself available to answer any kind of questions you might have. If I've already had a bunch of my patrons reach out and ask me questions about what classes they should take and stuff like that, I promise you that I can save you some money if you're planning on taking a tech course in the future. Anyway, back to the video. Okay. Got a diver swimming along. Really interesting. I don't know if you noticed that yet, but really interesting inflator on the diver that's being checked out by their instructor right now. It looks like it's an Apollo BC. It's kind of interesting. It looks like it has a kind of a metal fitting there. Almost looks like a JJ manual addition valve has been shoved into that inflator. I guess I've not really messed around with a whole lot of Apollo BCDs, but that's kind of interesting right off the bat. We got the instructor doing the old I'm going to wear my baseball hat underwater thing. It's never really worked out for me because the bubbles tend to push it off of my head, but I can totally understand why you do that in a rescue course, because you're on the surface a lot and you just I get roasted every time I teach a rescue course, just totally sunburnt. Anyway, so what's going on right here? The diver is having their computer looked at. Looks like a Sunto Zoop, judging by the color, by the computer. Not sure what exercise they're doing right now. Kind of just looks like the diver's swimming by. It did say that they were doing the self-rescue exercises at the beginning. So that's typically the first part of a rescue class. Usually takes place in a pool. But if the dive shop doesn't have access to a pool, then it could take place in open water. And that I don't really see a problem with that, as long as it's a nice, controlled environment. This is a rescue course, right? So they should have no problem diving in something like this. So let's see what happens. Look at the computer. Go that way. Computer. So what's going on right there? A lot going on right now. That happened fast. So right here, this is a distraction. Dive instructor is pointing at the computer. It even says it in the video description that this is intended to be a distraction. He's directing the diver to look at their computer and then swim that way. It looks like you might be telling them, stay at that depth, stay at this depth and swim that way. While he's doing that, he's reaching back and shutting off the valve on the diver's tank. So are there times in a scuba class where you will have your valve shut off? Let's just go with PADI, because it's definitely the most prolific training agency. There's a couple skills where they're going to shut off your valve, mostly so that you know what it feels like when you run out of air. They close the valve. You're looking at your gauge. You watch the needle fall, because the needle falls much faster after the tank is shut. There's still some pressure in the regulator. If you're not a diver, after you shut off a tank, there's still pressure in the regulator. But anyway, you start breathing it down, and you see that needles start to fall on the air gauge. Great tool, so that divers know. It helps you know that when you're looking at your air gauge to test during your pre-dive safety check, if you breathe off of your reg and you see the needle move, that's bad. That means that you have your valve shut off, or your valve isn't all the way open. Maybe you did the classic, instead of all the way open, in a quarter turn back, all the way closed at a quarter turn open, which is never good when you start diving because you'll get down deeper and your reg will stop delivering air because of the pressure. Rescue with, and this is just with Patty, the air sharing skill for self-rescue at the beginning is typically, I believe, conducted as just a normal air sharing exercise, like from open water. Those skills in the open water course are typically the only times when you shut off a student's air, unless they're being annoying. Another time that I've had my air shut off was during a cave class, and it was actually kind of a nifty little trick to get me to remember to check my valves and all that good stuff and be ready to, manipulate them if I needed to. Basically what happened was we were conducting a skill where a diver is swimming away from you and then you run out of air. So what they tell you is take a breath, breathe it, and then when you're done exhaling, then start chasing the diver without taking another breath. Get to them, tell them you're out of air, share air, all that good stuff. And it's supposed to let you know exactly what it feels like to have to swim with no air in your lungs. Because a lot of times when you run out of air, you don't run out of air after you get a nice full breath. You exhale everything in your breath and then you go to breathe in and nothing comes out of your tank. And that's a bad situation to be in. That's why you don't want your buddy to be too far away from you when you're diving so that you can get to them. But anyway, then when I went to do the other part of the skill, meaning I'm the person swimming away and another diver comes after me, to share air, the diver that was coming after me was actually an instructor student. And what I hadn't realized is the instructor trainer that was doing this had actually shut the gas off on my left post. So basically cut off the supply to my necklace so that when this diver got to me, I passed off my primary reg to them and then I switched to my necklace and I get a... And that was very surprising. And it was meant to be surprising because when you're diving in a cave, your left post, if you're using back mount doubles, you can come in contact with the ceiling and can actually roll your valve off. And I've never tested this, but supposedly it only takes 12 inches of contact to roll your valve all the way off. So if you're bumping into the ceiling a lot, then it's very likely that you could roll your valve off. And then when you go to share air with somebody, you switch to your reg and oopsie daisy, you can't breathe out of that reg. So that person was panicking, probably just got air they desperately need, and now you don't have air. You've basically just swapped the out of air diver. So you just need to calmly reach back and manipulate that valve and get it back so you're breathing again, which is good. And these are things that you need to practice. Anyway, let's get back to the video and check out what happens once this diver realizes that they're out of air, that their valve has been shut off. All right, so we're shutting the valve off, distracting the diver. Not really sure what they're trying to say to the diver, but air's been off now for a few seconds, so he or she will have gone through there. All the air left in the reg. And probably right about now-ish, after this breath. Oh, I have a problem. I'm panicking. Oh my god! And here we go. Here's the bolt. Now. Oh, it's so shallow. So shallow. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with something like this. First of all, if it's not specifically called for by, the instructor manual for this course, then if something happens, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble when it comes time to go to court. There's this phrase, duty of care, and basically what that means is that you need to act as a competent professional would in the same situation. So an instructor of the same level, what would they do? Well, they would follow the instructor manual. That's why it's there. One of the whole reasons why you teach through an agency is that the agency backs you up as long as you're following all of their procedures. If you don't follow their procedures, then you no longer have that backup. You really want to be following instructor manuals and stuff like that. So I would say this probably not the greatest idea. It's not horrible, but I get what they're doing. They're trying to give the student a surprise so that they can see what it's like to really run out of air. Now, it's not actually all that accurate, because when you do run out of air, there's a pretty, if you're paying attention, there's a pretty big warning at a certain point. Once you get when you're running low on air and you start to get below around 200 psi, you get down to the close to the regulator's intermediate pressure, it's going to become more and more difficult to breathe. As you inhale, the gas is actually, it's going to feel like you need to pull it, not like it's, you know, you just inhale and it delivers it. It's going to feel like you're pulling it out of the regulator. So it's not perfect, but I get what they're doing. I don't necessarily agree with it because anything can happen in one of these situations. You get if you like intentionally throw a diver into panic, like I get why you think it's a good idea. But I mean, you're talking about like full on panic from an adult with a like 35, 40 pound cylinder on their back. So they're going to be flashing, thrailing around. What if they spin around and you get bopped in the head by one of those things? Or I mean, anything can happen. What if they, I mean, obviously they probably wouldn't have a breath, but there's a very good chance in that situation where you could have, you know, gotten like a lung overexpansion injury. Probably not. I would think that they'd probably figure it out when their lungs are relatively empty, so it's not going to be a huge problem, but that is definitely deep enough for a lung overexpansion injury. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I believe that it's something like 4 feet is the minimum depth for a lung overexpansion injury. That is not that deep. So, what does that mean? Remember not to hold your breath when you're ascending, especially. But this, I don't know about this skill. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. I personally don't do anything like this in my rescue class. I don't teach that many rescue classes anymore. In fact, not at all. Really, all I teach these days is tech. Tech and rebreather, but I have taught a fair share of them. So now, like I was saying earlier, I don't know what agency they're teaching for. They could be teaching for an agency that actually requires you to do something like this in the rescue course. I don't know of one. If anybody had something like this in their rescue course, let me know in the comments and let me know what agency your rescue course was taught through. I'd love to know about that. So let me know what you think. I don't really think that this instructor was negligent or anything like that. I think they're just an instructor trying to make sure they produce a good rescue student. So maybe they should have done this, maybe they shouldn't have, but nobody got hurt. And that diver definitely knows how to react to running out of air a little bit more calmly now. Either that or they scared the hell out of them and they never got back in, which could be the case. Anyway, I really appreciate you watching this video. If you liked it, hit the like button because that helps me out a ton. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for diving with me today, and I'll see you in the water.
Beat by Apollo, stop at New Apollos. Cop a Henny sour, and I'm puffing Jack sour. Yeah, I feel a black power. Yeah, this time it's really ours. It's time to get the bag. Yeah, it's time